advance if you want. I got a bunch of college credits way in advance. But to let you know what I'm doing, since I went to college and graduate school, I work by day now. You see all the stuff in the background. This is my office I work at in the Wall Street area. So let's see, I hope I'm still here, but I'm way down in southern Manhattan. So I'm calling up for my office. So I teach astronomy and physics and do a whole bunch of stargazing out and about. And so hopefully we got all sorts of stuff that relates to nature and stargazing, because that's what's fun to talk about today. So that's a little bit about me. And if you want to see my videos of me being on national television with Al Roker and Stephanie Abrams on the Today Show, you can just go to my website, which is jasonkendall.com. Just like the baseball player, except I'm different. Anyway. All right, so what do we got? All right, vegan away.
Hold on. We're going to start with this young man, Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie, and what have you learned about some of the planets?
Okay, so there's a lot of really cool stuff about the planet. There's so many of them. First of all, the first thing to remember that I find is really neat is what just happened a few months back with Pluto. The New Horizons mission zoomed by Pluto in July, and all sorts of cool stuff is being found all the time. Glaciers on the surface of Pluto, snow on the surface of Pluto. There's hazes like a smog layer. So Pluto was thought to be people thought it was going to be a dead, icy world, but it ended up being a really, really, really active place. So that's what's neat about Pluto. And the neat thing about Mars is that maybe when you're my age, you know some people who will live and land on Mars. But even more cool is maybe within about 5 to 10 years, we might know whether life ever arose on Mars. We know it could have arisen on Mars. We don't know if it did. So this is kind of cool.
Oh, okay. So my next question is, what does the big red dot on Jupiter do?
I know this. Okay, very good. So the big red dot on Jupiter, that's a storm. And the storm is bigger than the entire Earth.
Yeah.
It's much bigger. The whole Earth could be swallowed by it. So it doesn't really do too much, except in the same way that a hurricane does stuff to our Earth's atmosphere. But it's kind of a weird hurricane, and it's going kind of backwards. It's actually dredging stuff upwards, because most of the energy for Jupiter comes from inside of Jupiter, whereas all of our weather is driven by the sun. So the sun gives us the heat that makes the weather. But on Jupiter, the sun's very cold because it's much further away. So most of the things that happen on Jupiter happen as a result of the interior heat. So it's coming up as opposed to coming up from the sun.
And my last question is have you found any life so far outside of Earth?
Well, no, there's no aliens, there's no civilization, there's no spaceships flying around. It's really unfortunate, it'd be really cool, but no, there is nobody that's ever found anything, but you can see what the people are trying to do. It's at SETI, SETI.org, the SETI group. And they're actually trying to hunt for life out there by listening and looking for places where people might be broadcasting. But we'll never get there. We're too weak and fragile to actually travel between the stars. But perhaps the messaging would be the light that they'd send, but it would be thousands and thousands of years old. And so a conversation with somebody in another star system would take hundreds, if not thousands of years just to transmit, hello, I'm here. That's all.
So it's like thousands of years just to send one message?
Yeah, because it's so far away. Because light travels. Let's pretend like we find somebody. Nobody's found anybody. Let's pretend. The average distance between stars is tens of light years. So something is going to be probably much further than that, maybe 1,000 or 10,000 light years. And it'll have to be really bright to see because it's light. So you'd have to be as bright as an entire star flickering on and off. And that's hard. It's very hard to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Who wants to go next?
Charlie.
I don't have any questions.
You can make up some questions.
I don't have any questions. My questions are just going to be throughout. I don't have a list. I don't have anything. I'm just going to ask throughout.
He's kind of like that. It's kind of awesome.
Do you have anything right now?
I have not really.
Okay, think about it and prep it.
Who's next?
Think about it and prep it. We'll go to the next one.
Brandon, you want to go? Okay, this is Brandon.
No, you, hey,
I'm Brandon.
step in front here, introduce yourself.
So I'm Brandon, and my first question is there any planets do you think we can live on in the next 100 years?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think so. I think that if we looked at what Mars is like today, Mars is a place that we could actually visit and go to. It's just really far away, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of ingenuity to get there. But once we get there, and people do get there, it will take a long time to change the atmosphere of Mars. But if you look at the pictures from Mars, from, say, Spirit and Opportunity and Curiosity and Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and the things that are currently there, what you'll find is that Mars looks like someplace like on the desert Southwest. It looks like a place that you'd recognize and that you could visit. So that's what's neat about Mars, is it looks like someplace we already know. The moon would be a great place to go back to, but you got to take everything with you. Air, water, everything. At least with Mars, you can at least build something to make oxygen out of the carbon dioxide in Mars's atmosphere. It'll take a long time, but it can be done. It's just hard and expensive. Good question.
Can you see pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope?
Yes. Oh, everyone can. And they're all free because the Hubble Space Telescope is run by NASA and the European Space Agency. So what they have to do, because Congress requires this, they say, you've got to go and put those pictures online. So if you go to hubblesite.org, HUBBLESITE.org, Hubble Site, you can go there and look at pictures that have been taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. And there's also another website called the Hubble Legacy Archive, where you can download other people's raw data, actual raw data that astronomers take, and you can make color images out of those too with the right software. The software can cost some money, but people do it, and people do it all the time. It's called the Hubble Legacy Archive. So yeah, you can go get it even now. I mean, it's free. It's pretty cool.
What is the most advanced technology you have seen in your job?
That's a good question, dude.
Yeah. So, I'm here sitting. Sometimes.
You're breaking up.
Oh, okay, hold on a second.
Oh,
wait.
You're starting to come back.
Oh. Hey, let's see if this works.
Okay, it's working. Yeah, it's working. That's just a sound. Yeah, it's just a sound of us hearing you.
Okay, so I can see you, but can you see me and hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so there's a couple of things. So if we talk about sometimes when you get a degree in something in college, you don't necessarily do that for the rest of your life. In the same way that I'm not doing that, but I do computer programming at my day job. But at my day job, though, some amazing things that I've seen are how people put together very complex networks of computers to be able to do calculations really fast. And it's in the financial world, so that's kind of a really interesting environment to work in. But from the place that I work, I got some coworkers over there who are giving me a hard time. I'm in amongst a bunch of people here. So, but when I go teach college, though, one of the most striking things I ever saw was when I was in graduate school. This is a while back. This is almost 20 years ago. And I went to a place in New Mexico where it was on the White Sands Missile Range. And they said, watch this. And they actually took me to a place where they could actually guide a laser. And this laser could shoot a missile out of the sky. So it was a cruise missile. And if you shot the laser at the cruise missile long enough and held onto it, the cruise missile would explode. And so I actually saw this happen. And it's kind of cool. And he was using it to like say, oh, we're going to get rid of nuclear missiles and make a big defense sort of space Star Wars thing. That's what it was called. It's called the Star Wars Space Defense Initiative. Well, he had a big laser. There'd be a lot more things coming in. But it was really neat to see. If you have a clear sky, you could zap something out of the sky. So that's something that's really cool that I've seen that has almost nothing to do with what I do. But when I teach astronomy, though, one of the most wonderful things that I've ever seen is that when you get outside of Chicago, you go someplace really far away. Because I grew up in Springfield, Illinois. When I was a little kid, I lived in Springfield. And when I was very young, about your age, I lived in Springfield. And we moved out when I was a fifth grader. I used to walk outside my front door and look up and see the Milky Way over the capital of the state of Illinois. And so when I walked outside, I used to see it. So nowadays, I have to go someplace very dark and very far. But when you get outside and you go to someplace really dark and see the Milky Way above and you lose track of the total number of stars in the sky, that's astonishing. And so if you get a chance, that should be the next scout thing. Big scout trip to some really dark sky location where there's no stars and no city lights for 50 miles and see what you see. You'll go, wow, there's too many stars. And then it's really neat. It's wonderful to stay up all night. Dusk to dawn should be a scout's expedition into the unknown at night.
An Indian guy for the longest person that stays up. That's actually a patch.
I've stayed up for a whole day.
Well, then all you need is 2 liters of Coca-Cola and you're set.
And also, one quick question. To get to a planet faster, couldn't they just put like more rocket boosters on a rocket and make like a rocket huge? Wouldn't that just make it faster and more easier to travel to somewhere super far away?
It would, but then you'd have to take another big rocket to help you slow down when you get there. So then your rocket's got to be bigger to haul more stuff, more rockets. So then that makes it heavier and harder to run. So the more stuff you put on, the heavier it is, and the more rocket you've got to do. So it runs out of control really quickly. It's not like Star Trek or Firefly or Star Wars. We got little bitty rockets. No. Almost all of your rocket will get used up going from place to place. It's called fuel. You burn the fuel tank up. Very good. All right. Did you have another question?
No. Thanks.
Okay, great. Good job, Brandon.
Me neither. I don't have any.
Not yet? Okay, Jack, do you want to go?
Come on, Jack.
Joe, you can guess.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Hi. My first question is, what made you want to discover space?
Wow, that's... When I was... Oh, I'm getting...
Yeah, we can't hear you. You're cracking up.
Cracking up. Are you
We
getting
can still
back?
see you, but
1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. See
yeah,
my
we
finger?
can hear you.
We can see you, but not hear you as good.
Okay.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, yeah, now you're good.
Back? Okay. So when I was in 3rd grade in Illinois, I had a good friend. My father was a good friend, but also he was running the graduate school at Sangamon State University in Springfield. And we had a conference of astronomers come over. And this old man named Bart Bach, great name. So Bart was an astronomer from the Netherlands. And what Bart did was he went out and he did all the studies of the Milky Way. And when I was actually your age, he came to our home with a bunch of other astronomers. And they had a big conference. It was in my kitchen. It was in our living room. And they'd all had their conference. They came over because, to have a social hour. And Bart sat, and because I was really quiet and I didn't make too much noise, I came downstairs and went into the party, and my father introduced me to Bart, and Bart said to me, "Now you've got to come down to Der Kit Peak, because Der Kit Peak is the place where all the stars are shining, and there are big telescopes down there, and you have to come down." And I thought, wow, that's really cool, because here's the guy who actually did all these discoveries. He and his wife, Priscilla, They went to Australia together. They lived there for a long time. They lived in Tucson for a long time. They go all over the world. So the neat thing about doing this kind of thing is you get to go everywhere. It's a science where you go places. You have to go to Chile to go to the dark skies. You have to go to Hawaii. You have to go to South Africa. You have to go, if they're following eclipses, you've got to go all over the world. But Bart told me that, and I wrote a report for my school. So you guys are doing this for a badge. I did it for a report for school. And when I did that, my teacher gave me a nice big A, and that was fantastic. But then when I was much older, I was in college in New Mexico, and we were going on a trip. And we drove all the way from New Mexico to San Diego, from El Paso to San Diego. And we stopped off at Tucson. I'd totally forgotten about Bart. And we went into this place, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's go to the Sonoma Desert Museum," which is just this museum, and it's out in the middle of the desert, and it's called the Sonoma Desert Museum. So they got those cactuses, those big cactuses, and they've got hummingbirds and all sorts of wonderful things there. And so I walk in, and I find the place where the hummingbirds are. And there's the hummingbird area, and I went, wait, hold on, I remember something. Walked into the hummingbird aviary, and there was a bench. And the bench was the bench that Bart Bach had dedicated to his wife Priscilla when she passed away a few years before he did. And so there it was, to my dearest Priscilla. And so he had sent me a picture of that bench when I was very young. And then I finally got a chance to sit in that bench when I was a graduate student in astronomy, going on a vacation, and just happened to go through the museum where he and his wife did so many things together. So astronomy is not just something that's a nice science to me and a wonderful thing to talk about, but it has it's a part of my family background. It's a part of growing up. So for me, it's like the dark skies and looking at the stars and wondering about the planets. That's been there for a very, very, very long time. I don't talk about Bart too much. He had bushy eyebrows that came out to here, shock white hair, kind of looked like Einstein with bushy eyebrows. And that was Bart Bach. He was a wonderful guy. And his book called The Milky Way was the standard thing to read for all students of the Milky Way for a long time in the 1980s and 1990s. And still today, it's still a wonderful thing. So if you can look that up, it's usually $3 on Amazon, a used copy.
My grandpa, one of his friends that he works with in his office, his name is Bert.
Bert?
Or Bart. No, Bert.
So close.
Bert.
Close enough. Jax, any other questions that you have that you want to ask that you didn't already answer?
Well, one of them already did, but my third question is, will Pluto ever be declared a planet?
Oh, my goodness.
It's a door. You're cracking up again.
Okay.
We can see you fine, just not to hear.
Okay, so let's see if we'll wait for it for just a second there.
Oh, your back's good. You're good. You're good. You're
Okay.
good.
So I'll just do a little song and dance if we get that again. So- All right. So, when I was in New Mexico, I did meet the man who discovered Pluto. His name was Clyde Tombaugh. So Clyde was this old guy when I met him, and he was in his late 80s when I met him. And he was a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he told horrible puns all the time. Now the thing is, what happened is that he knew that Pluto, the planet that he discovered, was a little weird. He knew that it was not in the same plane with all the other planets. It was much smaller, went into and out of Neptune's orbit. So it was definitely different. But I grew up with it being a planet. And in fact, the word planet has been redefined many times over the last few hundred years. It used to mean just a star that moved in the sky. That's what planet really means in ancient Greek. It means wandering star. So planetas in Greek means wanderers. So when you look outside tonight and get away from all the lights, you'll see rising in the east a very bright star. That star is Jupiter. So if you watch Jupiter over a course of nights, you'll see it slowly move with respect to the other stars. That's what a planet is and always was. Saturn moves the slowest. Mercury moves the fastest. Mercury and Venus move very fast. They're close to the sun. Mars goes all the way around the sky. But Jupiter and Saturn move slower and slower, and those are the planets. Now, it was not really convenient for that word to be a good word because asteroids were discovered. So what are they? So you have hundreds. In the 1890s and 1910s, there were hundreds of things that we called planets, which made it really hard to memorize. So you didn't. So if you had hundreds of things, terrible thing. I would not want to be an 8th grader or a 7th grader having to memorize all the planet names, right, with 100. So they were called minor planets or so-and-so. But finally, in 2006, people decided that they wanted to finally actually have an official declaration for what a planet was. And that definition took Pluto away for the following reason. And it's kind of weird. Okay. Okay, so a planet is round, unlike this ball. Okay. It orbits the sun, kind of like this, right? It orbits the sun. It doesn't orbit another thing. It's got to be round in a sphere. Now, here's the weird one. It has to clear its orbit to be a planet. That's a weird word.
What does
That's a
that
weird
mean?
definition. Yeah, so let's say you got the sun here, and you got the Earth here. So Earth is going around. Are there any other planets in Earth's orbit?
No.
No. How about Mars, a little further out?
No.
Okay, but way out by Pluto, there's all sorts of stuff. They're called the Kuiper Belt object. The Kuiper Belt. They're like places where we get comets, like Halley's Comet and other comets. So the idea is that a dwarf planet is something that's not massive enough to disrupt everything else and clear its orbit. That's what the word dwarf planet means. So Pluto's not big enough to clear its orbit. That's all it means. But here's the funny thing, because I don't really think it's a good definition. Now, that's me, and there's a lot of people who agree with me, but for now, at least, we have a definition. And here's why I think it's a bad definition. So here's the sun, and here's the Earth. Guess what trails and leads the Earth? Asteroids. Jupiter is way out there. It's got a bunch of asteroids. Now, wait a second. If the Earth were out by Pluto, it wouldn't be massive enough to disrupt the Kuiper Belt and clear the Kuiper Belt. So wait a second. It depends on the position then, and not just its mass. So it really doesn't, it's like saying, hey, it's a bird, right? What's a bird? What's the definition of a bird? Well, it's got wings. Okay. Well, penguin's got wings. Is a penguin not a bird because it doesn't fly? That's a good question. We still call penguins birds even though they don't fly because of what they look like and how they're built, not because if they can fly or not. Ostriches don't fly, but we still call them birds. So we've got different kinds of birds. Well, we have different kinds of planets. We've got rocky planets like Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. We've got gas giant planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And then we've got these icy planets that like Pluto and Eris and Haumea and Makemake. And they're way out there. So maybe the word, when it gets, the definition is going to get stuck for a long time, maybe 20 to 30 years, maybe longer. And I think somebody will come along and say, well, that was a good start, but we need to come up with new planet definitions because there's planets being found around other stars. And some of them are really weird, like really weird. There's a planet that's known that has the consistency of styrofoam, and it's as big as Saturn. So there's going to be weird planets out there that have been discovered, and you want to learn about those, go to the Kepler Space Telescope, and they'll tell you all about that. So I think the answer to your question is that no matter what we call Pluto, it's still a really cool world. And it's definitely a world. Whether or not we call it planet, who cares? What matters is it's a very interesting place, and it's part of our solar system, and it's one of the many, many, many objects out there.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I?
Anything else, Jake? Any others?
Nope.
Okay, great.
Can I show you something real quick?
Is it relevant?
Nah. It's not working.
Brandon, you were next,
All right,
right?
no, only space questions.
Oh, it's big.
I'm sorry. Joey was next.
Joey, do you have any questions you wanted to ask?
It's not working. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Fireworks.
There it is. There you go. Your Fitbit's on. Very good.
Yep.
All right, introduce yourself.
My name's Joey.
Hey, Joey.
My first question: Have you guys have you ever looked through a telescope and seen like a light bulb that's been powered by electric?
Right? Or like there's or take something that's very far and very small and make it bigger and closer. And that's one way you can like look at birds and things and look at like it's a great way to like go birding. Like people take binoculars and go birding. So yeah, I've done that. But the thing about telescopes, an astronomical telescope, is it flips the image upside down. So it doesn't make it look as fun. So if you astronomy, we don't care if it's upside down or not. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, I think that from our perspective, there's lots of different ways of doing it. And a really good friend of mine, his name is Al Nagler, designed lots of different kinds of telescopes. In fact, he designed the eyepieces used by the astronauts that went to the moon so that they could simulate what it was like on the moon. It's kind of cool. So that was his company is called Teleview, and I bought a couple of his telescopes because they're really good. And he uses them to go bird watching. He likes doing astronomy, but he also does a lot of bird watching. So that's pretty neat.
My second question is, have you ever been in like a rocket ship simulator?
No, I haven't actually. But there's a lot of things like Space Camp and that kind of stuff. If you get a chance, you should try those things, because what you can do is you can do these kind of wonderful week-long things where you actually see what it's like to ride in one of them. The closest thing you can do that's like riding in a spaceship is to go to Florida and do what's called, they call it the Vomit Comet. And what it is, it's a plane that goes up and down and up and down, and it goes on these strong curves, and they do these strong parabolic curve trajectories. And when you're at the top of the curve, you're weightless. And so you can have like 4 to 5 minutes of pure weightlessness. There was a music video done by like some group that was on the Vomit Comet. They're falling around inside of a tube.
Okay, go.
Yeah. I know what it is. They did that inside that plane.
Who is it?
Okay, go.
Okay, go. You're cracking up.
That's where they did that.
Oh,
so you can actually do that, and if you ever get down to Orlando, you can go to Disney World and say, hey, if we go to Disney World, let's do that. And it's an afternoon sort of thing. Costs a little bit of money, costs a lot of money, but you can still do it.
And have you ever seen a picture of Kepler?
Oh, I'm sorry, say again? I think you broke up one.
Have you ever seen a picture of Kepler? Kepler?
Oh, Kepler Space, Johannes Kepler or the Kepler Space Telescope?
I heard that there's been like a new planet discovered that was called Kepler.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, here's the thing. The Kepler Space Telescope has discovered almost 1,000 planets.
Oh.
So they have names, and they're really boring names, like Kepler 186f or Kepler 22b. So what they do is they say when they discover something that looks kind of interesting, they call it KOI, Kepler Object of Interest, right? It's like person of interest, but object of interest, right? So it's the Kepler Object of Interest. And when they finally declare it, they say, okay, this is a planet, then they'll give it a number. And so the 186th star around which planets are found is called Kepler 186. And then they put a letter at the end. So it's really crazy. The star's name is A. So the first planet found around star 186 is Kepler 186b. It's kind of a weird convention, right? So there is an Earth-like planet around Kepler 186a, the star. It's Kepler 186f. And they know it's kind of about the same size as the Earth, and they know the star could give light on that planet such that water could exist. But no one's ever seen the planet. It's so far away that it looks like a point of light. So it's more like, okay, so you see, let's see if I can, in the background, you see that light that's in the background over here behind me? So I go like this and try to block with my hand. See how it gets dimmer as I pass my hand in front of it, right? Pass my hand in front of it, the light gets dimmer. So when I take my hand away, so if a planet passes in front of a distant star, because all stars look like points in the sky, so imagine it just dims out, right? And then gets brighter again as the planet passes in front. So the planet acts like a little block. So you can see by how fast it goes across and how dim it gets with time, you can get a good guess as to how far it is from the star and how big it is. That's the only pictures you get. So if you go to the Kepler Space Telescope website, you'll see all sorts of artists' impressions and things, but no, nobody's ever seen a picture of another planet, except the ones in our solar system. Those are the only ones we know what pictures look like. But every other planet or on every other star is just simply known because it's the light this planet passes in front of the star and dims the light just a little bit in a very special way by how fast it dims and by the how fast it dims and how long it stays dim. That tells us a lot about the planet, which is kind of weird, right? Just this. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's all we get. So I want you to look that up because it'll look strange. Kepler Space Telescope. And just look that up. And ignore all the artist images because that's people going, wow, that's what it would be like if we were there. But we're not there. So we're here. Very good, though.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why do they call those planets Kepler?
Because they're discovered by the Kepler Space Telescope.
Can you
And
see?
it's named after an astronomer named Johannes Kepler.
So how did they get the names of like Earth, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn? How did they get those names if they did it on like a telescope?
No, they're very old. Earth and Mars are thousands of years old. They predate most civilization. In fact, if you went back and looked in the writings of the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, you would find these names are back then. So these names, if you were to go back and look at the times when the people were first doing the first writing in all across the Middle East and all across ancient Israel and the beginning and all across Rome at the time, and even across the well, it would be different. That would be for the West. They'd have different names if you went to, say, the Indian subcontinent or China, because they were looking at them too, but they had different names. So the world has chosen to use these names, but they get translated to different languages to their cultural references. So there you go. Go ahead.
And I also forgot to introduce myself.
Yeah, okay.
I just noticed that. My name's David, but you can call me Davey.
Very good to meet you, David. Or David.
All right. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Saketh.
Yes, sir.
And have you ever been in space?
No, I haven't. I'm not an astronaut. And there's only a few people that have. There's not many people that have done that, and it's an incredibly difficult program to go through. You have to spend many, many, many years training. You have to apply for the program. You have to be qualified for the program. You spend years of training to do it. And if you're chosen to be part of the astronaut corps from either Soviet Union, European Space, not Soviet Union, Russia, Japan, European Space Agency, or NASA, then you could go. Now, if you're willing to spend $300,000, you can go to Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic and take a flight.
For how long?
It's a lot of money, but there were people before the space shuttle was decommissioned. There were people on the Soyuz rockets. There have been private people who have taken a ride on the Soyuz rocket by the Russians up to the International Space Station. Just people spending, say, $20 million of their own money. So 3 or 4 people have spent $20 millions of their own personal money to go to the International Space Station. But Richard Branson has made it a lot cheaper. Still is pretty expensive, but a lot cheaper than that. And so his goal is to actually just be able to make a lot of people who happen to be wealthy give a chance for them to see the Earth as a planet and then hopefully value the planet as much. And that's part of his reason for it. He still hasn't gotten the entire thing off the ground, but he hopes to be able to do some flights very soon. So if you want to apply, just look up the NASA program for astronauts. There's a lot of work. They expect you to have you probably are going to have you're going to have to get a doctorate in some kind of science, like in engineering or mathematics. Specifically, be an applied field like engineering or physics. But those things help. And then you got to be very physically fit. So a good thing to be is you want to be a distance runner or a weightlifter. But distance running helps because you need to be very fit to be in space. Yeah, I would say go for it if you're interested, but it's a lot of work. But it's amazing because I know 2 astronauts. I know Mike Massimino and I know John Grunsfeld. And John Grunsfeld went up 5 times on the space shuttle, and he fixed the Hubble Space Telescope 3 times. So he's an amazing man, and I I remember sitting next to him when Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking, and Neil was talking about the Cosmos show. And after that, everybody mobbed Neil, and John Grunsfeld was off to the side. I went up to him and said, "Yeah, but you know what it's like to fly a real spaceship, right?" And he just smiled.
What's his applied science?
That's his applied science, right?
No, Mike Grunsfeld.
John Grunsfeld is in engineering.
Oh, okay.
Also has a kit. There's also medical doctors also help too, because you can get hurt up in space and somebody needs to be able to fix you. So Mike Massimino also does an applied engineering, but basically in applied science, some kind of electrical or mechanical engineering or aerodynamics is the place to begin. Those are important because you're flying a big machine, and you've got to be away from people, and you got to know how to figure things out.
Very cool. Any more, Socket?
So if you play the money, you don't need to do all the training and stuff.
You're breaking up.
Okay, let me do this.
Whenever you do something like that, you always come back in and you're fine.
It must be magic.
Yeah, it's a magic thing.
Well, Risaka, there are. You'd still have to do a lot of physical training because it's quite dangerous to go up in any kind of spacecraft. The history of space travel is very, very dangerous. There's a lot of people have died. And in fact, Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson's crew, one of the recent flights, the co-pilot died because he made a mistake. And so they had to break up the spacecraft. And so that's why they were going to do flights this year, but they didn't because of an accident. So space travel is extraordinarily dangerous no matter what happens. And so you have to be ready for a lot of things. It's a big adventure, and there's a lot of things associated with it. But if you save your money, you can do it that way. And on the first flight, Justin Bieber is apparently paid for one of the tickets on the first flight.
Justin Bieber. He's breaking up again.
All right.
You got more?
Socket, is that it for you? Or you have another?
Another.
Okay, go ahead.
Go for it.
Have you ever been in Boy Scouts?
No, I wasn't a Boy Scout, but I have given a lot of talk for Boy Scouts, and I support the Girl Scouts as well. And I've taken Girl Scouts on tours of the Museum of Natural History, and we do have a Boy Scout program up in upstate that I've gone and done evenings out with. So I think the Boy Scouts are great. I think this is fantastic.
But I have one thing. How dare you support the Girl Scouts?
Okay.
Well, remember,
More?
they do a lot of the same things that you guys are doing. And they go out and do lots of adventures, and they do lots of public support. And wait a second. Where's the Boy Scout cookies?
I'm not saying they're bad and horrible. I'm just saying that
Socket. Say
that
thank you.
we want
Say
the
thank
more
you.
attention, and
Thank you.
we're like,
Let
hey,
them hear
we
you.
want. Like we're trying to be competitive.
Okay, Davey.
What?
Go ahead, say thank you.
Some of the more important elements of being a Boy Scout is, there's what are the Boy Scout mottos, right? There's
Yep.
What are they?
Do your
Come on,
best.
guys.
Do your best.
Thank you.
Do your best.
Oh, man.
Embarrassing.
Big wood thing.
What's the motto? Not one of the answers.
Where's that big wood thing that we have every time? Davey, do you know where that big wood thingy is?
I think
Okay,
they failed that question.
Introduce yourself.
Work on it. But what very important things are, you got to be honest. You've got to be hardworking. You've got to care about your neighbors and your environment, and you've got to dedicate yourself to learning things and helping others. That's one of the most important things about being a scout. So that's what you're working on. So good for you. Keep it rolling. All right.
So,
Introduce yourself. Who are you?
Brody. I'm Kimberly's son.
Great.
And I've only got one question that hasn't been asked so far.
Okay.
And that is, how many planets do we know about?
Well, that's a really cool question. So we know that I think Pluto's a planet. I'm going to keep with it. So I'm going to say there's 9 in our solar system. But there's lots of other places that are cool in our solar system that haven't been visited yet. But the Kepler Space Telescope has discovered 5,000 planets around other stars. 5,000. And of those 5,000, about 8 are about the same distance from their star as the Earth is from our sun. And they're about the same size as the Earth is. So we've got 8 kind of what Earth-like planets out of about 5,000 that are known. And the thing is, remember, to get the dimming of the light, the planet has to pass just in front of the light, right? Just in front. So it's got to be a really, really tiny target. So if it passes like this, you're not going to see any dimming. If it's like this, you're not going to see any dimming. So it's going to be perfectly aligned. The prediction of the Kepler Space Telescope is that we're going to look at 1 million stars. And if everything was lined up right, and if planets were really common, they might see 1,000. 1 out of 1,000. 1 out of every 1,000 to 1. They found 5,000, not 1,000, which means planets are really common. And they thought they would have to look for years in order to get 1 Earth-like planet. So to find 8 and to have thousands of stars, the implication of the Kepler Space Telescope is that there are trillions, not billions, trillions, a 1 with 12 zeros after it, of planets in our Milky Way. So there's a lot of planets out there. So the Milky Way, planets just the Milky Way has lots of planets. They're everywhere, but we don't see them because they're hard to find. But the Kepler Space Telescope has found 5,000. So those are known, but there is probably trillions we will never see, but we just know are out there. So there might be something just like Earth somewhere very far away. Very.
I have a question.
The questions that are on the other boards are on
Another
here.
one.
The sheets are all.
Is billions a number?
Billions?
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question?
What? You're breaking up.
Ron,
Any
did you wanna
follow-up
ask a
questions?
question?
You're breaking up.
Or no? Because he's gonna need to go if you don't.
Dance.
Okay.
Dance.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Wow.
much.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Have you said your questions?
Great.
All right.
I know.
Take care.
Bye.
That's great. Great job, everybody.
Sam has a question.
Sam, you were a little too late on that, dude. You waited till we were clapping, and then you decided you had a question.
Oh.
Yeah, the ship got